For the most part, I thought AEW Full Gear was a really great pay-per-view. Of course, I had some smaller issues with it. You guys know me, I'm never fully happy. But for the most part, I really enjoyed it. Apart from one thing, which I absolutely hated. Welcome to Allison Analysis. I'm Ben Allison, and I've analysed last night's AEW Full Gear pay-per-view, and here are my 5 key findings. In at number 5, Kyle Fletcher had a star-making performance. First things first, let's kick things off by talking about the match, which in my opinion was the match of the night, and of course, that was Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay. And while it was no surprise the match was a banger, what was a surprise was how cleanly Kyle Fletcher won. I mean, of course there was the injured shoulder which Will Ospreay can use as a defense when it comes to talking about this loss in the future, but at the end of the day, Kyle Fletcher won pretty much cleanly. And not only that, in the finish, Fletcher just completely dominated Ospreay. I mean, it was move after move after move. Ospreay was surviving, but he wasn't fighting back. I mean, it made Kyle Fletcher feel like a big deal. It made him feel like a main eventer. And this, if done right, could be a star-making performance for him. The dude's 6'4", he has a great look, he's only 25. I mean, this guy really could be the face of All Elite Wrestling for years to come. I mean, seriously, build the company around him, right? Like I said, he's only 25 right now. Keep him as a heel for a couple of years, then turn him face. Bang, by the time he's 27, you guys have a poster boy, the face of your company. I mean, he wrestles literally in the AEW style. He's a big guy. He's got good looks. It's perfect. But what I just really hope is that they capitalize on this victory, right? Because quite a few times in AEW, we've seen stars get big wins, but then the big wins don't get capitalized on, and then they kind of get forgotten about a few months later. So I think it's absolutely vital he wins another big feud or another big match from here. In at number 4, Mariah May turning on Mina Shirakawa was the right choice. It was obvious one of two things were going to happen in this celebration. One was the return of Toni Storm, which obviously didn't happen, and the other was either Mina or Mariah was going to turn on each other. And of course, Mariah turned on Mina, and I 100% think that is the right decision. I mean, firstly, it is difficult for a face to convincingly turn on a heel. I mean, I think they could have got it to work in the situation, I do. But Mariah turning on everybody who gets close to her, I think is something which is going to be really fascinating long term with Mariah May's, well, just run in AEW, even past this championship run. If she continues to do this and she never trusts anybody, that could be a great story post this title run. In at number 3, AEW bringing in the Costco guys was a risk that paid off. Now, I'll admit it, when I first heard Big Boom AJ was taking on QT Marshall at AEW Full Gear, I thought it was a huge mistake. And after seeing all the negativity about AEW in the Costco guys' own Instagram comments, I thought it was even bigger mistake. But, well, I'm happy to admit I was wrong. Big Boom AJ versus QT Marshall was not only the loudest I think I've ever heard a pre-show crowd for any wrestling show, but it was also probably the match the crowd were most invested in all night long. But the man who was the most over and legitimately got the pop of the night was somebody who I hadn't even heard of a week ago, and that is the Rizzler. But while I don't know him, clearly a lot of people do, because the tweet announcing him has had over 11 million views. And to put that into perspective, that's 14 times the amount of views Paul Heyman's return got this week, right? And it's AEW's highest viewed tweet in over 2 years. I mean, legitimately, the Rizzler is the biggest draw in wrestling right now. There are only 2 tweets I can find in the entirety of professional wrestling which have gotten more views this year. One of them, of course, was the Joe Hendry tweet, and the other one was the Cody Rhodes WWE title win. But fair play to Tony Khan on this one, right? We all thought it was a bad decision, well, at least most of us did, but it wasn't. It was a home run for AEW, and it was thoroughly entertaining. But before we go any further, I'd really appreciate it if you guys could like and comment. Here at Wrestling Republic, we create between 5 to 10 free videos every single week, as well as a live daily live stream every single day at 8 PM UK, 3 PM Eastern, 12 PM Pacific. I hope to see you guys there. Thank you. In at number 2, Daniel Garcia's TNT title win was well deserved. Now, when I first saw Daniel Garcia wrestle, I thought he was a fantastic wrestler, but I thought he would struggle to make it in any big companies because I didn't think he had that much charisma. However, over the past year, he started to get more and more over, in part because I think he's developed a bit more charisma, but also because the audience has just really connected with him and how real he is. He isn't really playing a character, and I think in certain cases, including this one, that works. And also, we need to acknowledge Matt Menard as well, because his commentary work has been amazing for Daniel Garcia, and he has enough charisma to carry them both in that regard. But at this point, Garcia is massively over, and this title win is undoubtedly deserved. The pop was huge for it, the crowd were loving it, and it was just a really good feel-good moment. But now the reign of Jack Perry is over, I'm just going to say it. I think from an in-ring perspective, Jack Perry as a heel just doesn't work. His matches were boring unless weapons were involved. He's a small guy, the moves he was doing just wasn't convincing. He was facing bigger guys and he's the bad guy. It didn't really work. I mean, I don't really understand why they turned him heel in the first place, to be honest with you. Because, especially without the beard, this guy just looks like a face. And it's hard to look like a face. So the fact that he does is something that he should use to his advantage. His in-ring work as a babyface worked perfectly as well. It was perfect for his style. The heel turn made no sense to me. And it didn't really work. I mean, some guys just aren't meant to be heels. And they're meant to be faces. And I think one of those guys is Jack Perry. And in at number 1, the closing segment of Full Gear was nonsensical. After what I thought was a great match for the most part between Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley, AEW did one of the most nonsensical, chaotic segments that I have ever seen. So after the match, Jon Moxley, the heel, was beating down Orange Cassidy, the face, and then the heel, Hangman Page, came in to save the face. The crowd were then very confused. Then Christian Cage came in, he tried to cash in, so became a temporary face because the crowd wanted to see a title change and wanted to see Jon Moxley get beaten up. Then Jay White, the only actual babyface in this segment, came in and took out the temporary babyface, saving the heel Jon Moxley. So now the face was the one being booed in this segment. And if you thought that was bad, from this point the segment turned into a literal car crash. At which point Moxley and co escaped. They tried to get in their escape car, but somebody crashed into it, and that somebody we found out was Darby Allin. But he legitimately crashed into it. He got out of it. He was very clearly concussed. He was trying to climb onto this car. He just couldn't figure out how to do it. And it was only like, it was easy. Like, he climbs up things all the time. This was like one step. He couldn't do it. He was stumbling all over the place. He eventually gets on there. He's like, well, I'm going to break the car windshield with my skateboard, but just can't figure out how to do it. So he's just waving it about round, eventually manages to do it. It looks absolutely awful. He's losing so much blood, very clearly concussed, and the BCC escape. So the pay-per-view ended with a concussed Darby Allin standing tall, just days after losing to Claudio Castagnoli, who's below Jon Moxley in the BCC. I don't get this. I mean, it just wasn't thought out at all, was it? They clearly wanted a chaotic end to the pay-per-view, and I get that, but this was just not the way to do it. If you're gonna do chaotic segments, they still actually have to make sense. But again, for the most part, I really loved last night's AEW Full Gear PLA, or pay-per-view, I should say. My only criticism, other than that, is I thought it was a little long. Maybe a couple of matches should have been cut from it. But I really thought, as a whole, the card was great. Monet Statlander was fantastic as well. Ricochet Takeshita didn't quite live up to the hype for me, but wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. And if you haven't checked out the pay-per-view, well, definitely go check it out. It is worth a few hours of your time, that is for sure. But let me know your thoughts on the pay-per-view in the comments down below, and I will be back on Tuesday to give my thoughts on Monday Night Raw. Looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys then. Thanks for watching. Peace!